All right, just a quick check. What is that you see on the screen? Just type it in the chat box so that you know we are on the right screen. Okay, C15 is the right answer. So change management, handling resistance to change, solutions matrix, cost benefit analysis, piloting solutions, planning implementation, documentation, training. I want to share something new here today. Okay. Emotion and energy. All of you type E versus E in the chat box. Emotion versus energy. This is going to be very interesting because whenever you announce a change, the energy level changes and the emotions changes. How many of you agree with me? Please give me a 9 or 10 if you super agree with me. Whenever you announce a change, there is some emotions that it evokes and sort of energy levels that it touches upon. Okay, let me help you understand what this E versus E is, emotion versus energy is. Now, emotion is whenever the change is announced, what feelings does this change evoke? Does it evoke positive feeling or negative feeling? Similarly, how active is this response? Is it a positive response in terms of energy? In terms of energy level, is it positive or negative? All of you type plus/minus in the chat box just to make sure that all of you understand positive versus negative. Super. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Thanks a lot. Okay. Now, when the emotion is negative emotion, but high energy level. Negative emotion, high energy level, that is what comes as resistance. How many of you understood this? Type US, understood, in the chat box. When the emotions are very negative and they have high energy level, this is where they are stressed, they are angry, they are upset, they provide negative feedback, and so on and so forth. You've understood this, right? Great. Okay, now let us look at this. When the emotions are also negative, when the energy levels are also low, okay, when the energy levels are also low, they become distressed. The disengagement happens. They become sad, they become helpless. On a scale of 1 to 10, if you have understood this, give me a 9 or 10 if you have understood this. Awesome. I'm happy that all of you understood this. Let's look at this. Emotions are positive, okay? Emotions are positive, but energy levels are down. At that time, because of low energy, but because of positive emotions, they start accepting this. It is just that you have to hype their energy levels. They start accepting that they are calm, relaxed, and stuff like that. Whereas when the emotions are positive and energy level is also positive, then they are very proactive, they are excited, they are enthusiastic, they contribute, they become a part of the culture, they build in this. If this slide was useful, interesting, valuable, fantastic, awesome, please put it in the chat box so that I'm happy that I've shared something very valuable to you today. Awesome. You can take a picture of this if you found it very, very useful also. Now, let me see. This one is an interesting quote by George Bernard Shaw, which says, progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. Okay, how many of you liked the story of Eagle that I presented to you last time? Give me a like in the chat box, okay, if you liked it, or type like, that's also fine, okay? And how many of you want to listen to the story of Eagle? If you want to listen to the story of Eagle, if you like stories, okay? See, we are in change management, and this is a very, very important story that can actually deeply penetrate into your hearts. I can tell you, I have shared the story multiple times. Still, every time I share the story, this is really awesome. Okay. Like quickly, this is a story of eagle, okay? The eagle can live up to 70 years, okay? All of you type 70 in the chat box. The eagle can live up to 70 years. Generally, okay? Okay, good. So now, at the age of 40, it has two options. Okay. The option one is die. Why? Because at the age of 40, it has grown too big. His feathers has grown so big, it cannot lift its own body, and its claws becomes too bent. It cannot catch the prey. Bees also become bent that it cannot catch the prey, and so it has to die. Or because it will die of hunger, or it has got another option. The option is go to the mountain, build a nest, sit on the nest, rock its beak against the rock, okay, and pull out the beak. It's a very painful process. And also, its claws just rub it so that the claws also gets removed, and then wait for the new beak to grow, new claws to grow, and after that, pull out all the feathers, very painful. And after this, if the new feathers start growing, it can live for another 30 years. I want you to see this small video, which is for 5 minutes, okay? This is the story of an eagle. It can live up to 70 years. But to reach this age, the eagle must take a hard decision. In its 40th year, its long and flexible talons can no longer grab the prey, which it serves as food. Its long and sharp beaks become bent. The feathers become old, thick, and dry and heavy. The thick and heavy feathers stick to its chest and makes it difficult to fly. Then the eagle is left only with two options: either die or go through the painful process of change. The process requires that the eagle fly to a mountain top and sit on its chest. Then the eagle knocks its beak against the rock until it plucks out its old. And the eagle will wait for the new beak to grow and then plucks its old talons. When its new talons grow back, the eagle starts plucking its old age feathers. Thinks that is worth sustaining the pain. And after this, fly again like an eagle. All right, if you liked this, if it was inspiring, type whatever that you felt in the chat box. Have the passion and take action, and the magic will happen. Okay, thank you very much. Now, you're talking about change. Okay, thank you very much, each and every one of you who loved it. And let's go through further, okay? What do you see on the screen? What do you see on the screen? All right, change or chance, okay? Chance to change. That's also nice. If you do not change, you are taking a chance. How many of you liked it? If you do not change, you're taking a chance. So how to overcome this resistance to change? And that's what we want to do. Deploy here. What is resistance? What is resistance? Okay. Now, resistance is a normal productive response. Resistance is not bad. Resistance is NPR, normal productive response. All of you type NPR in the chat box. From here onwards, take good notes, okay? It's going to be very, very useful and interesting. Resistance is a normal productive response. It's not bad. What are the factors that cause resistance to change? There are a lot of emotions. If you see here, fear, joy, surprise, love, sadness, anger. The emotional reaction can be summarized in 3 words. All of you type F, 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 3 times F in the chat box. Fear, fear, and fear. Resistance is nothing because of fear, fear, fear. Fear of personal harm or loss. Fear of being incompetent. And fear that others important to me will be harmed. How many of you agree to this? Type agree. How many of you super agree to this? Type super agree in the chat box. It is just the fear, fear, fear that translates into resistance. Awesome. Now, unlike any of the 6 emotions, what you see on the side, fear is hardwired, which gives a flight or fight reaction, okay? In the limbic system, it's a part of the brain. So you need trust, transparency, and knowledge. All of you type TTK in the chat box. You need trust, transparency, and knowledge if you really want to handle this change by helping them overcome this fear. Trust, transparency, and knowledge. Now, if you see here, what are they doing here? What are these people doing here on the screen? Okay, TOW, tug of war. They say 1 against 3. All right. Now, the reason for resistance to change is fear of unknown. How many of you agree with this? Fear of unknown. How many of you agree with this? The perceived loss of status or power. They are afraid that they will lose their power. Sometimes it is because of the lack of understanding why the change is happening. How many of you agree to this? Or lack of understanding of why the change is happening, or lack of understanding of how the change will benefit. And sometimes it is lack of trust in people who are facilitating the change. How many of you agree to this? Lack of trust in people who are facilitating the change. Or sometimes it is perception that this change itself is not necessary. Sometimes it's a perception that change is not possible. And sometimes it is the people at the senior executives do not buy a lot. How many of you agree to this? And they are also resist because it might disrupt interpersonal relationship. Why strain the relationship, right? And sometimes people also feel, hey, it is a threat to our values and ideas. All right. Now, uncertainty, fear, uncertainty. This is what it causes. This change, what does it mean for me, is what people this thing. So this change, which is uncertain, haunts them. Okay, because he's running after this because what does it mean for me? And that is what is resistance. Okay, so uncertainty comes from competence or lack thereof, attachment to the current state, not prepared to consider the new state, or sometimes they might have the previous bad experience or negative experience. So change and resistance are hand in glove. They are hand in glove, and resistance is neither avoidable nor bad. Very important point. Resistance is neither avoidable nor bad. It must be managed, not avoided. If this was bulb on moment, that if you had a new revelation of resistance, type BON, bulb on in the chat box, because resistance is neither avoidable nor bad. It must be managed. It should not be avoidable. It should not be avoided at all. Resistance is a feedback. Okay, resistance is a feedback. So if it is beyond moment for you, bulb on moment, type bulb on in the chat box. And feedback is information, right? Feedback is information. Awesome. Now, appearances of resistance, okay? Appearance. Sometimes it looks like resistance. They will act as though they are resisting, or they call it resistance. So these are all different appearances of resistance. You have to recognize in whichever way it appears, you need to recognize it and deal with it. The success depends upon your initiative. The success of your initiative depends on it. Okay. So there are four main ways in which the resistance may appear. Direct and conscious resistance, direct and unconscious resistance, indirect and conscious resistance, and indirect and unconscious. Okay, since these are all simple words, I'm going to explain it a little quickly. Like direct and conscious means directly they will say, I won't do this because of so and so reasons. How many of you can relate to this? Type ICR in the chat box. They'll directly and consciously say, but sometimes it's direct and unconscious. What they will do is when workers oppose to the change, even though they are aware, unaware, unsure of their motives, they are not knowing because like typical union, okay, they don't know why they are doing it, but because everybody is doing, they are also doing. If you can relate to this type ICR. Indirect and conscious. Indirect means back lobbying, gossiping, going back and telling something, right? Backroom lobbying. You would have heard this in different culture, particularly in some of the Indian culture, you would have heard it. And indirect and conscious is, I mean, they don't know, they feel lethargic, they don't understand why this is and stuff like that. Indirect and unconscious. So these are the different appearances of resistance. Direct conscious, direct unconscious, indirect conscious, indirect unconscious. If this is useful, interesting, valuable, fantastic, put it in the chat box. You have to look at what form of resistance that is there. And then from old status quo, people will jump into this transformational idea and then go into the new status quo. You need to handle them through this process. Okay. And resistance to change. This is the most important slide I want you to focus. How many of you are focused to type FOCUS in the chat box? The next 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, whatever I give you is most important. Please take a lot of notes in this. Okay. I'm going to go a little faster, but this is going to be very interesting. Okay, right. Now, if you see here, there is a change that you want to do in your organization. Change announcement has happened. So people go through various type of behaviors or personalities, refuse to understand, they resist, okay, they do the withdrawal, they go the resignation, or they resign from the current situation, or they integrate and adopt the new system. Now, there is one appropriate attitude for each of this. Okay, let's understand each of them. First one, when they refuse to understand, what you need to avoid is don't push and be aggressive, or don't try to explain and argue. Instead, be patient, repeat the announcement, and make people to think when they refuse to understand. How many of you are with me in the chat box? Type WU in the chat box, with you in the chat box. Okay, so don't try to push, be aggressive, explain or argue, but be patient, repeat the announcement, and make people think. Now we will go through each and every one of this. Okay, so rethinking resistance. Okay, managing the feedback contained in the resistance is critical. The strength of the resistance only indicate the degrees with which they are affected. Okay, if somebody resists more, it means they are affected more. We need to recognize that. Okay, and discovering that something itself will help you manage that change. Okay, if this is clear, type super clear in the chat box. So instead of viewing that as resistance, try to understand the sources and motives so that you can make this change management very, 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 very effective. That is how you need to start rethinking the resistance when people resist. So resistance is equal to feedback. Feedback is equal to information, and information you can use for decision making. Okay, managing the change process. Now, there are different phases of resistance like this. They include either refusal or denial or skepticism or lethargy or incompetence or pessimism or helplessness. So whatever it is, we need to first of all welcome this, acknowledge this, treat back as a feedback. Feedback is information, and information is for decision making. Put that to change your decisions in managing the change. Okay, second is resistance can come in the form of apathy. What is apathy? Is like they lack enthusiasm, they lack interest. So that is called as apathy. So what you should avoid is you should not give up, okay? Or you should not wait till they change, but you should cause the action and insist them on engagement. If this is clear, type super clear in the chat box. So if somebody is showing apathy, lack of interest, or tendency to do nothing or remain unchanged, you should avoid giving up. You should not wait till they move, but you should cause the action and start engaging with them. Okay. Next, if they argue, what do you do? Argue is, reasoning systematically to support their idea is argument. Argument is not bad. They are giving a valid reason to support their idea. That is argument. Okay. So don't try to convince them. Don't try to make it positive and justify, but instead ask them questions and remind them of the facts and talk about the future. So there's no point in convincing them, making it positive or justify, or allowing the past to dominate, but ask them questions, leading questions. So when you come inside my program, I will help you in asking deep-rooted questions to really unveil this. And you can ask questions, you can remind them of facts and talk about future. If this is clear, type super clear in the chat box. If they revolt, what do you do? Revolt means taking violent action, or they are like rebels, right? So don't punish them or don't sanction whatever that they are doing, but instead reassure them and invite them to calmness. So these are current behaviors. I'm only giving you a high-level view of what you can do, but deeper I'll go inside my sessions, okay? Because this is not a complete session. This is a Lean Six Sigma session where I'm showing how to handle resistance at a very overview level. If you found it useful, type useful in the chat box. Sabotage is that, damaging something, okay? Make or treat as relative to depending on something else, deliberately destroy something, okay? That is sabotage. So don't sanction is, don't denigrate. Denigrate means don't criticize unfairly, don't humiliate them if they sabotage, but revitalize, enter into some humorous discussions, okay? And call people to intelligence, okay? Just help them understand what you're doing is stupid, okay? Okay, if this is clear, type again super clear in the chat box. And if it is withdrawal, I will share the slide, don't worry. Just take notes or take a screenshot, that's okay. If they withdraw it, don't depreciate or denigrate or dominate, but instead be positive. And you can also enter into some sort of argument to establish your case. And you can also be empathetic and enter into a good dialogue. Help people to think. Okay, now, what do you see on the screen? What do you see on the screen? Where have you seen this picture? Where have you seen this picture? Circus, right? So it is like this, okay? It is like this. This is called as a neutral zone. Okay, in the circus, this is called as a neutral zone. So after letting go of something, people are in the neutral zone because old thing you are letting go. So in that time, this is a no man's land between old reality and the new reality. Okay, the old way is gone, but the new doesn't feel comfortable yet. So we need to help. They have to have trust, transparency in holding your hand and coming to your position. Okay. So there are three phases here. One is when the old is ending, before the new is beginning, there is a neutral zone. In this neutral zone, you need to help them in transitioning till the new beginning. These are not separate stages. They are overlapped phases. Okay. Transitioning is a psychological process. Okay. Change is external. Transition is internal. It's the ending that you will have to leave the old situation behind. Transition begins with letting go of something. Unless transition occurs, change will not work. I'm just quickly reading this because general English, but I wanted to show these three phases to make sure that you handle this change from when the old is ending to a new beginning. Okay. So when people resign also, don't provocate them. When they have resigned the old one and when they are coming to the new one, don't provocate them. Don't tell them that I told you before, now you have fallen into line. Don't be sarcastic, but you tell them, you be positive, you congratulate them and keep insisting and showing the advantage of the new things that they are engaging with, and you can push them to action. And finally, when they have integrated and accepted the new change, okay, don't minimize the effort that they have taken. Don't minimize the past effort that they've taken. Please appreciate. Okay, and don't be sarcastic. Now I told you, no, you've come to this new. Don't be sarcastic. In fact, you must celebrate. Okay, reinforce the positive aspects, push them to action, and celebrate and congratulate them to this. Okay, so the summary is you need to prepare, invite, prepare, lead, and involve. Okay, and we have explained here in preparation phase, you explain why, reduce uncertainty, create dissatisfaction, co. Whereas when you're leading the change, you set milestones, you energize, you communicate, you provide inspiring vision, and finally, when you involve them, you empower them as leaders, you reward the adopters, and you celebrate the victories. Okay, change is never painful. Only resistance to change is painful. How many of you agree with this? Change is never painful. Only resistance to change is painful. All right. If you found today's session interesting, useful, valuable, fantastic, awesome, put whatever that you felt in the chat box. I thank each and every one of you for having come to today's session.